This is going to be the complete guide to ElementalCraft with absolutely no waffle. Let's get into it. Start to finish, you're not going to miss anything. The first thing you want to find is an inert crystal ore. There is a deep slate and inert crystal ore version. What is the best layer to get this from? It's going to be 36, unless of course the mod pack you're playing in has changed it. And it spawns from Y level 94 to minus 24. So don't go too deep into the deep slate area. It's going to get you these inert crystals here when you mine it. So you can add gold nuggets to put it into a contained crystal. And this is one of the first two things you're going to need in the mod. You can also make the guidebook with this, but most of it will be locked at this point. The second thing you're going to need are some actual element, because this mod is based on the 4 elements of earth, water, air, and fire. There's 2 different ways to get this. The first way to get these is actually by finding them. For example, here is an air source. There's also one I found here. So you'll find air high in the air, or in very tall kind of biomes, you know, like up in a mountain like this one here. You're going to find earth nodes underground and places like that. Dry places like deserts will be for fire, or in the nether. I think air is in the end as well, and water would obviously be over ocean biomes and things like that. If you are having trouble finding them, there is another way to get them, and that is shards. Shards look like this. So there's a powerful shard and a just raw shard. A powerful one is just 9 small ones put together, as you can see here. And there is, of course, one for each element. So how do we get these? Well, you can actually get these ones by killing mobs, and it will determine which one you get. So creepers and nether mobs will give you fire shards, drowned, squids, guardians, fishes. You guessed it, it's going to be water. Earth is zombies, skeletons, and other kind of undead. And air is anything in the end, and also spider mobs. So if you are having trouble finding sources, maybe starting up a mob farm could be a good idea. But you can use either way. If you want to be using sources like you can see here, or you want to be using the shards, you could use either way in this mod. It's completely up to you. So we then actually need to start extracting the element that we have so we can start harnessing it. And that is used using 2 things. A small element container, there is larger ones that you can't quite get yet, and an element extractor. So you place the element container, the small element container, 2 blocks below, as seen here, and then you place the element extractor 1 above. So let's just do it together, to be honest. Let's say I've got an earth source here. I'm going to go, okay, I found my earth source. I place the small element container. And can you see here that there's a small white orb showing? That's showing me that in this container, that it is empty of element. Whereas if I hover over this one, you can see it's full of green, full of blue, full of air, full of fire. And it's showing you how full the container you're looking at is, basically. And then above it, we put the extractor. And you can see it's showing me that I should put an extractor here. Very clever. I right-click it on, and now it is extracting the source into this container. Now, these sources can deplete, and when they do, you will obviously stop getting source. Just wait 5 to 10 minutes. They need to be refilled. They will refill periodically. So, like I said, wait 5 to 10 minutes and it will refill back up. Do be careful. If I place a block like this, that source is now gone. So do be careful when placing blocks around it. You don't want to accidentally destroy the source, as shown. If you're wondering, can I move the sources to where I want? Yes. If you're playing in 1.19 and above, it's called a displacement plate. You can't make it yet. If you're in 1.18 and before, it's called a source receptacle. But I'm going to show you more advanced things like that later. The small element container is made of some glass and impaired element pipes, which are literally just those contained crystals I showed you, which is the inert crystal and some iron, and impaired element pipes are the first pipes you'll be able to make. So what if you use the shards then? How would you do that? Well, here's my small element container. I'm just going to break that one and do it again. And rather than using an extractor, we're actually going to use an evaporator. And what I do is I get that shard, let's say my powerful air shard, and I right-click it into the evaporator, and it evaporates it basically into the source that it is made of. And as you can see here, I'm getting some into this. You can see it's filling up slowly, it's evaporating it. Just because it's immediately disappeared, you can still see that it's flowing downwards, and therefore it is still filling up. And you can see here that the orb, showing how full the container is slowly filling up over a sort of about a minute or 30 seconds or so here. And that is how you get source and element shards. Before we get any further, I want to let you know that I'm partnering up with G-Portal here to give you 10% off your first month with them. They do all sorts of Minecraft servers, whether you want modded, Spigot, Sponge, anything you want. And you can swap out not just Minecraft, but any game on your server at the click of a button with GameCloud. Meaning the possibilities are endless. Again, check out the link in the description so you can get some money off with code Javier. So now that we've got our source, we need to start manipulating it. So what I've got here is a source, earth, with the extractor, and then I'm using some pipes. So I'm actually going to break these pipes and show you what I've done here. So see these little nodules on the left and right? I can hook these up as pipes. So if I want to pipe it out to this one, I would just go pipe, pipe, and then put my new small container here. And then what I'm going to put on top is an infuser. Okay, an element infuser. So now we're going to start infusing items with element. As you can see here, the earth is in here, but not in here. So with my hand, I'm just going to right click on that pipe here, and because this little green bit has come out and it's now extracting from that pipe and going into here. So you just right click on this bit here to extract. If you do it again, it will disconnect. I would just break it and replace it at that point. It's just easier. But right click on it there on the pipe section to extract from that one, and it will go into this one for you. Because obviously we've got the extractor on this one, so we can't put our infuser on top. How unfortunate. So what I'm now going to do is I'm going to make some white rock. I'm going to make white rock, and I'm also going to make some drenched iron. And these two things are basically going to mean that we can make a whole new range of items. So I've also set it up to be automated. So stone, you simply right-click onto the element infuser. And what's going to happen here is the infuser is going to infuse that stone with the element of earth. Now it's disappeared. That's because I'm using an instrument output retriever. Well, of course I am. And it's going into this chest here. I'm also using a hopper, so I can literally put the item hopper with stone in. So it's going into the element infuser, as you can see. And then I'm using the instrument output retriever to pull out. I just literally place it down next to the element infuser, and it's pulling out into the chest. Now, the instrument output retriever does require white rock and drenched iron ingots. I would recommend you automate the setup, because you're going to need a lot of these items. And drenched iron ingots, if you click on it and you've got JEI, just enough items, element infusion, you can see here that it says you need water element with an element container and an infuser above it, and iron gets turned into drenched iron. So rather than using earth and stone, you'd use water and an iron ingot to make the drenched iron. And then it unlocks a range of things like an element container, which is just like the small element container, except this is a bigger version, basically. So I could place that one down instead, put it on top. It works exactly the same, but this one can obviously store a lot more element. It's the upgraded version of the small element container. Once you've also got these items, you can make an element pipe, meaning drenched iron and contained crystal, or you can use 2 drenched iron to upgrade your impaired element pipes to the better version, which is an element pipe. It just is in the guidebook that they exist in 3 tiers, impaired, normal, improved. I'm not sure if the better ones will take, I think it takes more out quickly, like it's faster. But I know some things you will need the better ones for recipes, etc. to really work. So I would just upgrade them and start using the better ones. But that is element infusion. At this point, there's also a few other machines that or processes we can unlock, which are these 3 here, using fire, air, and water, and also binding elements together to make, or binding items together using the elements to make more advanced materials. So first up here, we have the fire furnace. Put it above a container and give it fire, and this will work as a furnace. So I can put my inert crystal in here, right click it in, or use the automated setup that I've shown you here. That would work fine for automation for all of these really. And then you could just right click out your inert crystal. Then we have the air mill grindstone, which basically grinds things down using air. Again, put it above an element container. And lastly, the water mill wood saw uses water as a saw. So I'm going to show you these in JEI. So you can see here the air mill grindstone uses air, and we could turn amethyst cluster into amethyst shards. You could make cobblestone into gravel, ancient debris into netherite scraps, and all kinds of things like these. It's basically just like a grinder to grind things down. The watermill wood saw you can use to strip logs, make planks, and things like that. As you can see here, really great way of doing that. And then obviously the furnace I've showed you. So then we have element binding, okay? So the first thing we're going to make with this is going to be a swift alloy ingot. And often in JEI, when looking at these items, you'll see element binding is the way you make it. And what you can see here is that there's a clockwise way to do this. So you must always start at the top and go clockwise. So gold, then drenched, then copper, then redstone, then an air crystal. So I can right click in the gold, the drenched, the copper, the redstone, and then the air crystal. And as you can see, it's working and turns into a swift alloy ingot. But you must add the items in that specific order, going clockwise, otherwise it will not work. So always follow the recipe in order, clockwise, when looking at element bindings there. But congrats, you've now made a swift alloy ingot, and we can move on to even more advanced items. So what you may be thinking is, okay, Javier, you've showed me how to automate inputting and outputting from things, but this binder needs it in a certain order, so a hopper isn't really clever enough to do that. Well, the item that is clever enough to do that is the ordered sorter, which you can now make because you have swift alloy ingots. So that's probably the first thing I would make if I were you. So we've got here our air and our element binder, and I've just made an ordered sorter. I'm just going to make another one just to show you how it works. So I'm going to shift click it onto this chest because you want it to obviously extract and be going into the element binder. And then all I'm going to do is click it on this middle part with the order of which I want things to go in. So the gold ingot is first, then the drenched iron, then the copper, then the redstone, then the air crystal. And you can see the order at which it's going to input into the element binder. So if I put drenched iron in here, into this chest, nothing happens because it needs gold first. I could put copper, I could put redstone, I could put air crystals in here. Absolutely nothing will happen because the first step is gold. So as soon as I put the gold in here, it goes, okay, yep, sure thing. And it starts inputting them all in so that they can be bound up into swift alloy ingots. And then you would just use a usual instrument output receiver to obviously output the output into a chest. So I can right click that, and again it's going to put the gold, the iron, etc. all in the order you have specified in the ordered sorter. Another thing you can also make with swift alloy ingots is element diffusers and holders. So this is an element diffuser, and what I can make here is a holder. So you can see here there's obviously one for each element, and then there's a pure element holder. But I'll be getting onto these in a minute, a bit more complex. But the single element holders, as you can see here, needs a water crystal, which again you're just infusing the basic ones with the element in the infuser, etc., etc. So they're all very simple at this point. So if I'm holding my air holder, and then I have an air container with an element diffuser above it, it's imagine you've got a diffuser in your bathroom or something. It's diffusing it into the atmosphere around it. And therefore, as you can see, passively, my air element holder is filling up in my inventory because nearby we are diffusing that air element. So that is diffusers and also sorting. I think we're at the point now where you really need to be making maybe your own sources to continue. So how can we do that? Well, one way you can do it is using a solar element synthesizer. When we look at the recipe for it, you're going to see a few items that I haven't spoken about before, a solar prism and a hardened handle. Basically, at this point in the tutorial, I'm going to be assuming that you know how to do certain things, and the recipes that I may not be showing will be craftable by methods that I've shown. For example, a solar prism is made with springaline shards, which I haven't shown you, but if you look, it's just using amethyst shards, nether quartz, water, and a water crystal in an element binder, which obviously you do know how to do. So even though I haven't shown you this item, you should know how to make this item. The same with a hardened handle. It's with air silk, but air silk is made by putting string through an infuser with air. So the items I'm not showing you here, well, I am in this instance, just don't panic if you are finding it a bit complex. You will be able to make the items here for these items. So you make the solar element synthesizer, put it above an element container, and what we then do is we make some lenses. So there's 4 different lenses: fire, water, earth, and air. Funny that. And what you could do is you can place these lenses above the container in the solar element synthesizer. So obviously fire lens is made with, making a fire lens in fire. And again, these are just through element binding with items that you can already make. So I'm going to get my fire lens, and I just right click it into the solar element synthesizer, and it's synthesizing using the power of the sun fire element, and you can do all 4 elements this way. Now what you'll notice here is that I haven't got much air in this one, and the lens is gone, so they do lose durability. You can see at the top of my screen I'm using the Jade add-on or mod. The fire lens is quite quickly losing durability, so you could do a few things here to counteract that. You can enchant it with unbreaking, as you can see here. You can actually also just infuse it with more of the same element to get unbreaking, which makes perfect sense. I love it. And then the unbreaking 1, you can then infuse again with more fire to get another unbreaking, if that makes sense. And you can kind of keep going, I do believe. So you can get unbreaking on these as shown. So what I'm going to show you now is basically the pure infuser, which is technically kind of a multi-block setup. And we're going to look at some advanced or improved machines that we can make after making that, including making gems. And this is finally the part where you can start moving your sources as well. So what we need to first do is make the pure infuser, as shown here. You'll notice it will need a strongly contained crystal. That's just pretty much simply made like this. And then we're going to need 1 of each altar: a water, a fire, an air, and an earth pedestal. And these are made with element binding. Now what you will see here is to make these pedestals, each one will need a crystal, or sorry, a gem. So how do we make the gems needed for this recipe? Because I haven't shown you that yet. Well, we will need a gem crystallizer. The way this works is you throw in a diamond like this, and then you put in a pure crystal. Sorry, ignore me. A fire crystal or an earth crystal, etc., etc. So I misspoke. If you use a pure crystal, what you will get is a pristine version of the gem. Whereas if I use a fire crystal, you may get a lesser version. So there's a crude, a fine, and a pristine version of these gems. So what I've got here is an earth creative element container. Yes, I'm using creative because it's a guide. You right click in the diamond first in the gem crystallizer, and then I'm going to get an earth crystal, and I right click, hang on, I want to get some shards, and I right click in the earth crystal, and then I can right click in raw earth shards to increase the chance of how good the crystal that comes out will be. So you don't have to use these shards, but adding them will increase the chance of getting a pristine, for example. If a recipe calls for a crude or it calls for a fine, then you will be able to use the better version. However, of course, if the recipe requires a pristine, you would have to use a pristine. But if it only requires a crude, then, and you've only got fine, that will be fine, if that makes sense. So you can always use the better versions in recipes if needed, but you must always obviously use the best version if it requires that for the recipe. So basically you put in the diamond, then you right click in the crystal, and then you add any shards to increase the chance of getting a higher quality, but you don't have to. If you use a pure crystal, which is made in Infusion. This is why I misspoke, because I was like, oh no, of course, I need to show you Infusion first before I can show you how to make pure crystals to use in the gem crystallizer. So the pure crystal, which I'm about to show you, in fact, let's make one of these as the example. That will always result in crystallization in a pristine version. So once you've made these crystals, you can make the pedestals. And then what you do is you just use a improved element pipe and make it extract from obviously your source, and it goes into the pedestal. So you can see that this one here has got earth in it. So now what we're going to do is, using Infusion, we're going to make a pure crystal. And you can see here it needs fire, air, earth, and water crystals, which we'd make with basic Infusion. So I'm going to put a earth crystal on the earth pedestal, air on the air, fire on the fire, water on the water, and a diamond in the middle, and it will automatically start infusing the item in the middle with all 4 of these crystals. And it really is a beautiful transition here. And it will take quite a lot of source to do this. And there we go. So it took about 5 to 10 seconds, and we've got our pure crystal. And I can just obviously right-click that out. So now that you've got these items, there's a few other things I want to show you quickly. I'm just going to show you in the guidebook because it's quite self-explanatory with everything you already know. There's the improved element binder. This basically works like a binder and an infuser, meaning it can do binding or infusion at a faster rate, which is really good, of course, and it needs some Swift Alloy and Pure Crystals. It's just an upgraded version of those machines. There's the Mana Element Synthesizer. This is actually so you can use mana to harness elements from Britannia. I would show it to you, but I don't have Britannia installed. You can do ore doubling with the ore purifier. It's the same way you do everything in this mod. You just right-click the item into it or use the automation methods that I've shown. This takes ores and purifies them to create pure ores at a ratio of 1 to 2. So it's ore doubling. You can then smelt them into ingots in any furnaces. You will notice on a lot of these better machines, they must require a container rather than a small container, by the way. And also, this ore purifier will require earth, an earth container beneath it, in order to double your ores. And then we have the reservoirs. An element reservoir is an advanced element storage containing more than the usual container. And that's the best version of storage, is the reservoirs. Now that you've got the gems, you can also make the source displacement plates. So basically, they allow you to move source. You need to first analyze the source using a source analysis class. By placing them under sources over a solid block and right-clicking them, you can put them in a receptacle. Once the process is finished, the plate will be broken, and you will need a pristine gem to get repaired. And you will be used. So there's a broken one and a pristine to repair it. You use one for fire, you use one for earth. There's one for each one. But that's how you move sources. And again, that's using the gems here. So again, analyze the source by using it with a source analysis class. Place them under sources and over a solid block, and then right-click them, and it will put it into that receptacle for you. There's also pipe cover frames that you can make. We could make this earlier, to be honest, but I might as well just show you now. While I'm showing you these bits and bobs that we can now make, you can hide a pipe behind a block, use it on a pipe while sneaking, and then right-click it with the block you want to hide it behind. So, you know, basically camouflaging it. With Infusion, another cool thing you can make here, with Fireite ingots, which is made with element binding. We can infuse purple, white rock, prismarine, and Fireite ingots into obsidian to make pure rock. And this can withstand the blasts of withers and things like that. And that's something else cool that you can make in Pure Infusion. The other one you can make in Pure Infusion is the Pure Element Holder. When you put an air, fire, water, and earth holder with a Pure Element Holder core made with those Fireite ingots and a Pure Crystal that I've showed you how to make, you can make a Pure Element Holder. So when you've got your diffusers going, the Pure Element Holder will actually be able to hold all 4 of the elements rather than having to hold and carry around 4 individual element holders. And again, that is made with the Infusion altar, or the Pure Infuser, as it's called. Really must make sure I call them by the actual names here. This here is the Rune Inscriber. And this is really, really cool. We can actually augment our machines in ElementalCraft. And wow, God, we've got quite a lot now. Using something called runes. So make the Rune Inscriber, plop it on top of your elements, etc. And then you're going to make some, well, you're going to make some runes, funnily enough. So there is minor rune, rune, and major rune slate. Now, when you look in the guidebook, let's take instruments, ore purifier. As you can see here, it can be upgraded with up to 3 runes. So in the guidebook, it generally tells you for each machine how many runes you can upgrade it with. And it does say including the luck rune. So with the ore purifier, I guess you would get even more ores with the luck rune. So there is a minor rune and major rune. Depending on which rune you're making, depends which rune slate you'd need. And each rune needs a specific element. So, for example, for the Tano rune, it needs fire, 2 blocks of coal, a major rune slate, and a pristine fire gem. So the example I'm going to be doing is, what is this, fire? If I can find, here we go, the Manx rune. So what does this rune do? Element preservation 5%. So you're going to use 5% less element when you're infusing and binding and doing all of those things. But it will take off some speed, and therefore the machines will work a bit slower. So a bit more efficient, but slower. So, okay, we've got our rune inscriber. I'm going to click on the rune, so the minor rune for this one. It goes onto the slate. And I'm going to right-click coal, and my pristine fire gem. And then I'm going to use the rune inscription chisel here a few times. Just right-click, right-click, right-click. You just have to tap it a few times. And that is intended, by the way. It's not a bug. You are meant to hit it a few times. And it's basically inscribing it onto that rune. And I can just right-click it and get it off. So there we go. We've got our Manx rune. Then I can right-click this onto the machine. So you can see it floating up here. Like I've added 3 Manx runes onto here. And you can see those runes are inscribed into it. To take them off, you shift-click with the rune inscription chisel. Or you could also just break the machine, and that will take the runes off as well. So we've got Wee rune adding speed, but taking off some preservation. The Manx obviously being the opposite of that. Kawaru rune adds speed and preservation, but that one will actually require a Jita rune and a Fuss rune. So you're actually combining runes together to make an even better rune, and it's limited to 1. There's the Clap Traps rune, luck 100%, so you might want to use that on your ore 1, etc. Luck 200%, that's the Bombadil's rune. Zod rune will make it a lot faster. Loads of really cool runes here that you can make and add to your machines. This here is a shrine. Shrines are really cool items that must be piped in with element. So here I'm pumping fire element into a fire pylon shrine. Now, if it's got a tick here, it's running. If it's got a pause sign, it's running but did not find anything to do. So FYI, it will not consume element if it doesn't have anything to do. And if it's out of element, it will show you the red X. So what shrines do we have? So first of all, making a shrine. Shrines are basically you make a basic shrine, as shown here, with element pipes, etc. And then you use element binding to make the shrine that you want to make. And you just place it down as shown. So we've got different shrines that we have. The ore shrine excavates ores underneath it, only leaving stone where the ore was, consumes earth. Lava shrine melts basalt above it into lava. The sweet shrine periodically refills hunger and can also boost nearby bees production if you upgrade it with a nectar shrine upgrade. The vacuum shrine pulls towards itself nearby items and stores them in a chest, etc., or a container beneath it. The growth shrine accelerates crops from its level up to 3 blocks above it. To grow crops that cannot grow with bone meal, you need to upgrade the growth shrine with a boneless growth shrine. Harvest shrine harvests crops below it. So you can make a whole crop farm using ElementalCraft. It's really quite amazing. Budding shrine, grows amethyst clusters. Breeding shrine will breed animals around it in range, but will use food laying around. So you'll need like a dropper or something for that. There's loads and loads of shrines here that you can make to do all different sort of farms and different things that could be really useful in your world. This part of the tutorial is probably my favourite part of this mod, and that is spells. First up, make a spell desk. Go into the spell desk, and if you go... Oh my, not quite that. I was replying to a YouTube comment and gave them a link to a video. Elemental. You can see here all these different spells, right? So we're going to make maybe a Scroll of Inferno. So you put scroll paper, air silk, ink sac in the top, and then a fire crystal or the crystal shown, and the crystal shown on the left. So for example, for a scroll of purification, it shows that you can use a fine, pristine, crude, for example, but must be one of those. To make a scroll of flame cleave, you can use crude, fine, or pristine. But a fireball scroll, you can even just use a diamond, whereas some will require pristine, some will require fine, etc. So I'm going to put I've got a scroll of flame cleave here, but I want to make a scroll of inferno. So I'm going to put my fire crystal in. I'm going to put my scroll paper in, and I'm going to put in just a pristine fire gem. As you can see here, it can make a scroll of flame cleave, inferno, or fireball. So I'm going to make fireball. So I click it, and I've now got that. And as you can see here, it's got the tick, so I know it's going to work. And I can literally just right-click with the scroll and make a fireball, for example. Now, what I can then do, oh, and by the way, it will use your element, so make sure you've got an element holder in your inventory. What I can then do is make a focus, as shown here. I can go into the anvil and put the focus in here with the scroll of flame cleave and take it out. And I can put it in again with fireball, and it'll have flame cleave and fireball. And I can just right click to use that spell. If I shift and scroll, can you see it's changing it between the two? So shift and scroll up on my mouse wheel, fireball. Shift and scroll down, now it's flame cleave. And you can actually have multiple spells onto your focus with the anvil. There's also the grimoire, which basically can store your spells. You could just put them in here, all your spells in this little grimoire, very nice. And then there's also the war staff, and this is it is an upgrade. It says it slightly increases the range of spells. I didn't actually know that. That's one bit I actually didn't know. You can use a netherite sword or a diamond sword with fireite ingots and a hardened handle and your focus. But the good thing here, it will actually keep the enchants that are on your sword, and it will keep the spells that you have on your focus already. So it's like a double whammy. Really, really amazing. And you can use it just like you would use the focus sort of thing. And that is how you do spells. The last thing we have then, which kind of goes on top of spells, I would say, because it's kind of enhancing you and things you're doing, are jewels. There's a ton of jewels in here, as you can see. Jewel of the Phoenix, for example, makes you invulnerable to fire and makes it heal you. Consumes fire from an element holder. So just like your spells do, it will also consume the element from your holder. You can unset jewel. It's pretty much just made like this. And then you add in, whichever gem and the ingredients shown. And you can just hold that. There's, Jewel of the Tiger, increasing your attack speed while fighting. Jewel of the Viper adds poison to your attacks. Jewel of the Demigod allows you to use tokens of Undying inside your inventory without holding it in your hand. All of these jewels that you can hold are having your inventory. So they give you passive bonuses at the cost of element. You can have this effect by either holding the jewel in your hand or placing it on a piece of gear using an anvil, So that's how you actually use the jewels. Absolutely amazing. So much customization with your build you can do by using these and then using the spells. Honestly, this mod is just absolutely phenomenal. Really, really is. And that is pretty much it, guys. So we've been through jewels, spells. You've got a list of them in the guidebook here as well. Then these are all the shrine upgrades here. And it shows you where you can put them on. You can put them on any side, top and bottom. I forgot to mention how you use the shrine upgrades, but pretty self-explanatory. I would have a look through what these do. You've got the shrines category. If you forget what any shrine does, you can look through there. And that is pretty much it. So I hope this was useful for you in learning ElementalCraft. This video is fully chaptered, so do feel like you can go back and read any chapters, watch any chapters that you do need for the mod. But absolutely phenomenal magic / kind of tech mod here using the 4 elements. Haven't really seen it done to this extent before. Really, really well done. I absolutely love it. I hope you did enjoy the video. Click that subscribe button if you did, and of course leave a thumbs up. If you're looking for other mod guides, I do a hell of a lot on this channel. My actual goal on this channel is to complete every major mod in the entirety of Minecraft for Forge, Fabric, etc. If you look at my channel, I have a tech mod shelf, a magic mod shelf, a utility and standalone mod shelf, so ones that aren't in playlists. I also have now mod pack guides as a shelf. So at the moment, I am live streaming through ElementalCraft, and you can get that, of course, on my lives. I live every Wednesday and Saturday, and you can always see when the next scheduled stream is. And I play through the mod pack, and then I will also do separate guides on that mod pack. So if you are looking for specific mod packs, or you just want to come along and ask me some questions or hang out, you can also do that there. Do also just use the search bar if you are looking for a specific mod. And if you'd like to play with me, the mod pack that I do live stream, I do from our Patreon server, which of course you can join down below, which would massively support the channel, but also gets you access to things like that.